How's it going, guys? I'm going to be looking up at you all this time, and I haven't fully set up my camera and stuff, and I don't feel like piddling with it tonight. But I thought today I'd bring a pretty serious change of events. And as most of you guys know, I've moved out to Oregon, and I've been out here for about 7 months now, and I've been moving place to place. And I think I now have a permanent residence for at least another 14 months before I make another decision. So yeah, a lot has changed. So I'm going to go ahead and explain from top to bottom, no, from left to right, up to down, down to up. No, but what's really going on in my life for the past 12 months since I left Oregon, or since I left Virginia. There's a freaking fly bugging me. The video, the quality is not going to be as great as it usually is. I just haven't really unpacked anything, and I probably could set it up. After work today, I just don't feel like doing much, but just recording a video, and I don't want to play with a freaking camera. And don't get distracted by my right eye, of course. I've been explaining I've had issues with it, and don't get distracted by me not having any hair. So just focus on what I have to say. It's going to be probably a long story, so get your popcorns out, get your Cheetos, start working out and watching my video, do whatever you do. It's probably going to be a little long story because this is going to go all the way from when I left Virginia to where I am today. So here in Portland, Oregon. And there's a lot of things to talk about. So yeah, so here we go. So I'm going to try to divide this up into sections. So there may be some parts you don't want to watch. You want to skip right ahead into something else. So feel free, go for it. Back last summer, I made that final decision to just say, hey, I'm going to go live out to the West Coast where it's a little more accepting. You know, a total change in atmosphere, and I did. I made it happen. And so in September and October of last year, in 2016, I embarked on an amazing adventure. And along the way, Tomas, my buddy, he joined me on it. He tagged along, and he had his same ambitions too as I did. He had the same path. I'm not saying he was clinging on to me. I'm just saying we sort of just, I should say a better way, just joining me on a quest to move out west. And I was really happy about it, and I really, really was thankful he came, because it's scary going by myself, and he came along, and I'm proud of him, and I'm happy for him. Despite his illnesses and stuff, he chose to, and he decided to come. I remember I left my family, and it was pretty sad. My brother and dad were on the front porch, and you know, they were there watching me drive off. It was pretty sad, but I was at the same time knew I had to do this. I had to do it. I just knew I had to do it. You know, looking back at it, I don't regret it. I think it was the best decision I ever did. It was the right decision. You know, it's a hard decision I made, and there's a lot of cons that happened to it, but it was worth it. So I remember I drove off, and I remember as I drove further and further away from Virginia, I went through Tennessee and somehow went back in Virginia again, and then I went Kentucky. And I remember seeing things start to change more and more, and I felt like I'm getting further and further away from home. And I started to reflect on the seriousness of my decision I made, and it was totally. I felt saddened and scared and fearful what I was doing, but I felt like life's an adventure, and it's waiting for it to happen. It's waiting for me to join the quest. You know, it's waiting for me to just jump on it and just go with the flow, enjoy it, and I did, and I'm so glad about that. And I remember when I was out in the Midwest, it was totally different. I was getting further and further away from Virginia. I felt very alone. I felt about to cry at night. I felt like, what am I doing? Am I doing something stupid? And you know, I started to doubt myself. But I remember you guys were very encouraging, and you guys helped me out and make this happen. And I remember, yes, you know, I think they can understand where I'm coming from, and I can reflect in myself, and I realize, yeah, I gotta fucking move. I think we instill doubt in ourselves. Maybe it's from our parents or from whoever, but we instill doubt in ourselves to keep us in place. And I wanted to shatter that, and I did. I broke out of it, and I'm not afraid to live anywhere no more. If I want to move in San Diego, the next place, my God, I'll make it happen. If I want to move back to Seattle, I'll make it happen. So, but because of that, I broke that barrier. The second I left Virginia, I broke that barrier. I broke it. And it felt amazing to break it. It felt liberating. I officially felt like a man again, you know. When you turn 18, like, I'm a man, right? When I left, I remember I was in Kentucky, I started to feel more like a man. I feel like this is what a man does. A man isn't afraid to be in one place his whole life. He's got to break out. And I think a lot of people, well, woman or man, I shouldn't make this a gender role, sorry. But I'm just saying, like, to make you feel like a person, so to speak. to make you feel like a human being, you just gotta fucking just get out there and move. And you know, this one YouTuber actually inspired me. I'm not saying he only did one video ever, but he kept posting quotes saying, you know, inspirational quotes from all kinds of people in the past, and he just kept, his song was encouraging, and it was just showing him having a good time going around seeing places. He wasn't a big YouTuber or anything like that. I don't think he has a channel more, but that video motivated me so much to actually do it. I realized, like, what I'm gonna do, stay here like a pussy and not ever move anywhere and being miserable? Move it, do it. Quit being a pussy. So that's what I did. I just basically smacked myself and a few other you guys smacked me too. I went right for it. So yeah, it was pretty amazing. It was a very liberating experience, and having Tomas only furthered my progress. And yeah, I'm not saying I was trying to use him in any way, but he definitely did motivate me and encourage me to leave, and I really thank Tomas for that. So me and Tomas, we met up in Davenport, Iowa, in a nice hotel. I actually threw some money into it. We stayed in a nice place, a decent hotel, and Tomas, you know, was very ill, I remember, and he tried to make the best of it. So me and Tomas tagged along, and we continued out into the plain state, so to speak, and I kept remembering, like, I can't believe I'm seeing the plains for the first time in my life. It was just amazing. And I remember, again, I'm getting further and further and further away from home, and I'm continuing to break more and more and more barriers, and I thought that was totally worth it. So I was like, this is totally worth it. And I remember the one thing I wanted to see before I even died was Mount Rushmore and the Rockies. Why Mount Rushmore? I want to actually see all of the national parks before I die. And I know I'm very young still, but I'm just saying it's just something I want to do. And I saw Mount Rushmore, and I'm happy for it. I saw Mount Rushmore. And then beyond that, I saw the Rockies. And I thought the Rockies in Montana were amazing. Words can't describe those glacier kind of mountains or whatever. Really amazing. So, where am I going out with this? We had some ups and downs. You know, Tomas was battling his sicknesses, and he just he got to the point in the trip where he was just, by the time we left Montana and we're going to Washington, he didn't give a shit. He just wanted to go to sleep, go to a hotel because he wasn't feeling well. And to remember, I was in Washington State, and I was treated to this semi-desert. I remember that was amazing. It was awesome. And I remember I was getting more and more nervous too as I was approaching Seattle, because Seattle was a major city. Here, ever since I even left the small town of Davenport, you know, that was the last of the biggest, or the bigger towns, but between Davenport and Seattle, there really wasn't nothing. But then from there, from Spokane all the way to Seattle, was just dead. And then we started into the Cascades, and as we were coming, sorry about the fly, as we were coming down the Cascades, it got busier and busier and busier, and I got more nervous and nervous and nervous. And by the time I got into the suburbs of Seattle, it was pretty fucking busy. Cars everywhere. It was scary. And I remember this is part of living in a city and stuff. You gotta have to deal with cars all the time and major traffic and stuff. So yeah, pretty intense. So I remember me and Tomas just took the first few days in Seattle to just rest and relax. We were both exhausted. We were totally exhausted. So we actually just were very casual the first few days and enjoyed Seattle and seeing what it had to offer. We explored all the suburbs, met some wonderful people. There were some nice people in Seattle, despite what I have said in the past. I think the people were very aggressive in like shopping centers and stuff. I don't know what the hell. It's like they're trying to kill me. But besides that, yeah, it was pretty epic. Seattle has a beautiful skyline and some really, really cool stuff going on there. So we stayed in a hotel in the northern suburbs in a city called Everett, and we stayed there. I could go on and probably write a book on that fucking horrible hotel. The people there were fucking crazy. I'll be honest with you, it was crazy. That one lady that worked the front desk, I wrote a long review for a hotel there, and that lady can kiss my ass because she sucked. She was a horrible front desk. I remember in Seattle and Everett, I felt like I was getting more and more and more lost. I felt like I was getting more and more like a homeless person feeling, and I didn't like it. It started to scare me a little bit. So me and Tomas actually spent a lot of dedicated time trying to find a house in Seattle, and you know, we were thinking of doing sublets, and then we thought, nah, maybe we shouldn't. We met some wonderful people that actually showed their places. They took their own personal time to show us, and I'm thankful for those people. even to respond to some emails and stuff. Really nice people. I really think that I was a little bit scared about everything. I was scared shitless. I'll be honest with you. Cause sometimes I could hardly sleep at night because I was scared. I didn't know what I was doing. I was in this gigunda city, and anyone that's never really lived in a major city, you know, go to a city like Seattle, especially with the traffic the way it is. It's pretty fucking intense. It is intense. I think Seattle was way more intense than Portland, where I'm at, but I did really enjoy the beauty of Seattle. So it was pretty cool. We came during the beginning of the rainy season, so we didn't really get to enjoy their more drier days, so to speak. In fact, it was raining really bad. Anyway, so we basically gave up. We couldn't find a house in Seattle. It wasn't working out. The pricing was unrealistic. I didn't have a job, so who would want to take you in if you don't have a job? Well, we started looking elsewhere. So we looked in Portland, Oregon. It was a neighboring city, and the houses were okay, and the prices were relatively decent. The cost of living still was significantly higher compared to where I'm from. I remember we drove all the way down there for two places in Portland, and one was already taken when we got down there, and the guy says, "Well, you better move fast in this town," and he's not kidding you about Portland. You really do have to move fast. Same thing in Seattle about getting houses, because it's like we have a housing crisis here, so it's really bad. It doesn't make it easier. And the other place we looked at was a dump, epic dump. It was ghetto, trashy, wasn't worth it. So we went back to Seattle, very disappointed, and we kept looking and looking. And then we found one place. It was a duplex, and it was in Portland, not too far from downtown. It was pretty awesome. We looked at it, great. This older gentleman. No, he was a really good-looking 70-year-old man. I think he's cute. Anyway, he showed us the place and looked great. He fixed it up nicely and everything, so we took it. We lived in this duplex for quite some time before discovering about the horrors of the neighbors. Don't get me started with the neighbors. I'm going to get started with the neighbors. They're the ones that started all this problem. It's all the neighbors' fault. Let's blame the neighbors, okay? The neighbors had a drug addiction. They were I don't know how many of them were on drugs, but okay, the landlord explained next door to this, just a retired couple. They're quiet. Me and Tomas looked at each other like, oh, sweet, that means this is going to be perfect. Oh, anything but perfect. Those people were quiet, all right. Well, there was a period for 4 weeks where their 17-year-old son was like gone berserk or something about his girlfriend. I don't know. But besides that, they were overall quiet, but they were major drug users, and which wouldn't bother us. The problem is all their drugs were coming into our apartment. So it really became a serious problem. We addressed the landlord. We confronted them. Nothing. But meanwhile, I got a job, which actually kept me away from that. Tomas didn't have a job and he was sick. He wasn't feeling well. He had these horrible knee problems, which is impairing his ability to do work. And he was stuck in that shit. And on top of that, I was borrowing his car just for a little bit until I could figure out what to do with mine. And I felt really terrible about that. Here he was smothering in marijuana. And I remember I came home one day from work, and Tomas was irate. Some people get manic over marijuana, and he was getting manic over it. And I could smell it was bad, and I was pissed. I'm like, you got to be shitting me. The whole place smells like pot. And I got mad. Anyway, I stormed all the way out to the other side of the duplex. Oh, make sure I don't do that again. What the fuck? Okay. And then I went ahead and I stormed all the way out my duplex into theirs, and I banged on the door. And they opened up the door, and they're like, and the father's like, what? He immediately said that. He was already pissed off. Meanwhile, behind him was his wife holding the dog as usual, because we've been to their place before. I confronted them, and I looked at him, and I said, we need to talk about someone with the problem we're having next door, about who's causing it. And he's like, I remember this, like, ow, come on. He always had this kind of higher pitched voice. He goes, look, I wasn't here all day. And then Tomas and me interjected and said, hey, we're not pointing at you or whoever. We're just trying to figure out what's going on so we can resolve this issue. He goes, look, my wife, she has an oil burner. She likes to light it up a few times during the day. And we're like, oil burner? What the fuck? And then he kind of cut us off and just slammed the door. And then Tomas peeked his head back in and goes, look, we know you fucking smell pot because when we first fucking came to your apartment, we could smell it. So fucking quit doing it. And then he walked off, stormed off. I was like, go, Tomas. And then the father turns to me, don't you bang on my door again. I said, yes, sir. So here he complains about me interrupting him, and yet they interrupt their lifestyles all the time. Piece of shit. And don't get me started with him kind of looking in the window to see if we're home so they can smoke pot in their duplex. I'll never forget that. we moved out, and we kind of, as we were showing the place to the landlord to say, hey, we cleaned the place, it looks great. We kind of caught him lying, because here he said that they were not smoking a pot in the apartment. He was kind of defending him the whole time because they've been his tenants for 23 years, I assume. But we kind of caught him. He goes, "What am I supposed to do? Make the whole duplex non-smoking?" And me and Tomas are like, "What the fuck?" Yeah, those people are fucking. I'll never forget them, and it really totally put a damper on Tomas. It really did. Put a damper on me too. It made me think kind of made me think negatively of Portland, because there were a lot of walkers, we call them, like from Walking Dead, that were just constantly walking the streets high on a kite and shit. That's crazy. I'm not used to seeing that. It was pretty scary. I about hit a man that was just wandering, jaywalking on the street, just like there on a 45-mile-per-hour road. So it kind of scared me a little bit. So yeah, me and Tomas, we were like, yeah, we're done. We're done with it. We're done with the whole this place, and we needed to decide. We didn't find a place in time because me and Tomas were indecisive. Tomas is like, let's go to Vancouver. You can commute over the two bridges, and then, you know, it'll be okay to be worth it for a sanctuary. I just feel like I valued something differently from him. I valued a little more commute as opposed to living in Vancouver. I would like to have lived in Vancouver, but I just couldn't do it. I was looking in Hillsborough. And by the way, these are cities, kind of suburbs of Portland. They're just much further out from where I work. I work in southern Portland, so I kind of wanted to be within the confines of southern Portland. After the night we moved out of the duplex, we stayed into a hotel, and it reeked so fucking bad of pot. It was worse than our duplex. And Tomas is like, I'm done. And I felt like saying I wanted to just quit and move back home too at that point. But I realized I gotta keep going on. I just said we're just falling for the bad traps. I feel like we were just falling for the wrong places. Sometimes money pays off. So the next night we stayed in a nicer hotel. Pot filled a room for about an hour or so, and it just sort of just turned us off about that. That was kind of a negative thing, because pot is not like you think it is. It really is very powerful shit. It sounds like a giant skunk, and it really is just too distracting and disturbing. It's not like a fart, because farts come and go. You know, if you poop in the toilet, you can at least get it out. It's just marijuana is so hard to get rid of. You know, Tomas, we ultimately decided, based on our housing choices and our lives, Tomas decided to just go back home, and I felt it was better for him based on he was sick and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it was very devastated to hear that, but I figured, like I said, it was for the best. So I ended up staying in a hotel I was in a hotel for the 5 nights. I had stayed in some really fucking awful ones. And then I said, you know what, fuck it. I'm just going to stay in a mediocre hotel for so many days, because that way it's not too expensive and it's not too bad. So I stayed in a decent hotel. It was like, it was a little expensiver, but it wasn't like the Hilton or anything, but it was good. It was decent. People were more mediocre, I guess. And that's perfect for me, because I'm a mediocre kind of guy. So I was very happy about that. And I remember I was terrified at night. I think I cried and like myself to sleep. I was just scared because Tomas left and he was gone. I felt like he just pulled the rug out from underneath me. When he didn't do that anyway. I just felt like I was lost. I was like, he's gone now. I'm all on my own. I'm scared. You know, what am I going to do? I got to find a place. And I moved quickly, and I found a place that was within a few miles of work. Luck. Ooh, I glow when I do that. Luck. I got really kind of terrified. Of the situation. I found the place. It wasn't that great. I knew it wasn't, but it was just enough to get me by. And it's a townhouse, a little mini townhouse. It even has its own garage, which is pretty cool. And the price range is probably more on the lower budget end in Portland, because the cost of living is so high. So yeah, the only issue I've been having with these people next door. So ultimately, I ended up in this place, and it's I'm gonna say overall it's more positive, at least, especially with the commute time. Just have to have the pieces inside it for it to work, for the magic to start in this home, because I don't have much of anything. I'm starting to work on a bed now, so that's a start, because I want to bring, I'm just gonna have to just take one step at a time. I gotta take it one step at a time. I gotta get my place. I'm not trying to make excuses. I can't make excuses up for everything, but I really do have to get a place decently going, and I need to, after I get that going. Well, I mean, you can't really look at things in steps, I guess, but I really have been spending a lot of time trying to move in and get my place organized and situated, and that's not an excuse. This is the first time I'm really sitting down since my live chat that I'm actually pouring some fun time into you guys, and this is really enjoyable, to be honest. because my job is finally like, lightened up a little bit with the workload, because I was spending some weekends on some of the stuff, and it just can be really consuming. My job can be, but now I can stop and breathe and enjoy life, and I look forward to it. So thank you guys for watching my long video. Hopefully it wasn't too long, but I felt like I had to say it. As far as Tomas, I'm going to miss him really bad. He's probably one of the best people I've ever met in my life. Probably one of the coolest people I've ever met. I encourage you to follow him or watch him and keep an eye on him. He's a really great guy. I can't really have much negative stuff to say about him. I just worry about him because here he's, battling this terrible illness, and I just don't know what he's gonna do. I guess I'm just gonna miss him. I don't know what else to say on it. We had so much fun times. We go all the way back from college, so maybe our purpose with each other was too much of a distraction to what we needed to do in life. I don't know. I'm not gonna divulge into that. That's really personal, I guess. But I as you all should go on and wish him the best of luck, or if not, I encourage you to follow him and pay attention to him. I have a feeling he's not done yet with YouTube. I have that feeling. I feel like he's just gonna go on YouTube and just, if he gets time to, which I'm sure he's very busy, but I'm just saying, if he gets extra time, I have a feeling you're going to see him on YouTube doing some videos. And I think he's the kind of person that we kind of need on YouTube right now, to be honest. And I really look forward to it because he's got balls. Tomas has balls. He's not afraid to back down on anything. And once he takes a bite, he ain't gonna let go. So I'm warning you. Okay, guys. I really enjoy talking with you guys. And again, this is a lower quality video, but I'm just taking it easy this week. Probably for the next few weeks is going to be like this. So, love you guys, and you guys take care. I'm sitting in a chair, so I can't warp out, so I'm just going to get up, okay? All right, see ya. Don't forget to follow me on Snapchat. I post videos daily, and I also like to get involved with my subscribers more in depth on Snapchat, and it seems to be very successful. So feel free to join me on Snapchat. It's really wonderful. Kind of freaky and weird, but it's pretty cool, so check it out.